Alright, welcome to the Strange North channel. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the disappearance of a man named Jeffrey Boucher in 2014. Actually, a few years ago when I was thinking of starting a YouTube channel, I originally wanted to do videos exclusively on missing persons cases. It's a subject I've been fascinated by for many years. And looking back now, I'm very happy that I didn't make this the main focus of my channel. There are just many other topics I'd like to do videos on. But I've always been fascinated with disappearances, and I'm going to do a bunch of these videos on my channel. And to me, there are just some cases that are a bit more odd than other ones. The details surrounding the case just make it a bit more unusual or maybe mysterious. Although I definitely don't want to speculate too much on this channel. And this is also the first video I'm doing from Ontario. Over time, I want to present stories from across Canada. And so far, my channel has been very Western Canada heavy. And this is the first story I'm presenting from Ontario. And so hello Ontario, and I'm just going to jump right into the story. So in 2014, there was a man named Jeffrey Boucher. He was 52 years old and he lived with his wife and his two daughters in the town of Whitby in Ontario. Jeffrey was very well loved in the town of Whitby, and he taught business and geography at Bowmanville High School in the town of Bowmanville, which is just a couple towns over from Whitby. Jeffrey was known to be very active. He loved to ski, and he was part of this social running club where he was a very popular member. And every morning he would get up at 5 a.m. to go for a solo run for about an hour before work. The Bouchers lived on Gilchrist Court in the town of Whitby, and directly to the west of their house was a creek that ran from a conservation area in the north to Lake Ontario to the south. And so, like I mentioned, Jeff would go for an hour-long run before work every morning. And on January 13th of 2014, once again, he set out for his morning run. So that morning, Jeff's wife, Kirsten, said that when she woke up at her regular time, Jeffrey was gone as he usually was. However, when he hadn't returned home by 8:30 a.m., his family got very concerned. He was usually home well before this time. All indications said that Jeff had gone out for his regular run. His car was still at home, as were his wallet, passport, and keys. And so Jeff was a bit lucky in this case, in the sense that his wife Kirsten and their two daughters, who still lived at home, started looking for him fairly quickly. Like I said, they were pretty concerned when Jeff hadn't arrived back home from his run by 8:30 that morning. By that time, he was usually on his way to work. And so Jeff's wife and his two daughters started looking for him relatively quickly, and they started in the conservation area north of their home, as Jeffrey often ran in this area. Jeff's family found no sign of him on this initial search, and they quickly notified the Durham Regional Police, who quickly assembled a large search team that included foot searchers, ATVs, tracking dogs, multiple helicopters, local civilians, and local search and rescue organizations. This very intensive and well-publicized search took place in the region for nearly a week. Interestingly, multiple canine tracking teams could not find Jeff's scent trail anywhere in that area. Although it should be noted that they had some pretty bad weather around the search, and so that could have hampered the dog's ability to pick up a scent. The police said that as they were searching for Jeffrey, they searched out to a 5-kilometer radius from Jeffrey's home in every direction, but they found absolutely no signs of him. There were multiple reports of Jeff's family emphatically saying that there was no chance of suicide or running away on the part of Jeff, that he was very stable and happy, and that his disappearance was very unusual and highly out of character. The next month, the Durham Regional Police would get assistance from the Toronto Police with the use of their underwater robotic side scanning camera, and they used this to search Lake Ontario in the area where Jeffrey went missing. But again, this search also turned up nothing. And well after the official search had been called off, Jeffrey's family and friends would continue to look for him, but nobody found any additional clues as to his whereabouts. Then on March 11th of that year, there was a breakthrough. Someone walking in the area of Hayden Shore Pavilion found a tennis shoe near the waterline. The shoe was turned over to the police, and they confirmed that it belonged to Jeffrey. This caused the police to then search the area again with multiple helicopters, but no further clues were found. Until a couple weeks later, on March 29th, that day around 11 a.m., another person found Jeffrey's second shoe, and another intensive search of the area began. And then later that same day at around 2:30 p.m., a man was walking his dog, and he found the body of Jeffrey Boucher. Strangely, his body was completely naked and partially encased in ice. And of course, this is quite unusual. People often find the deceased bodies of people that have gone missing, but it's pretty rare to find them completely naked and partially encased in ice. And so there was an initial autopsy on the body, and days after this happened, the police stated that the cause of death couldn't be determined until the toxicology was completed. But they did say that there was no evidence of foul play. Many months after the initial autopsy, the coroner said that they could not determine the cause of death and that the toxicology report showed no drugs in Jeffrey's system. The police stated that they thought Jeffrey accidentally fell off the pier and died in the cold water of Lake Ontario, but ultimately there were no clear conclusions in this case. No foul play was suspected. Jeffrey was not intoxicated by substances. His family was adamant that he was not at risk to run away or commit suicide, and so it seems odd that his body ended up the way it did. And so that's pretty much the story of the disappearance and death of Jeffrey Boucher. And again, they didn't really figure out how he ultimately passed away. The coroner said that they could not determine his cause of death, and the Durham Police simply said that they thought he slipped off the pier and fell into the water. And of course, that very well could have happened. It's just an unusual story. And I'm not going to speculate on what happened in this case. I really don't know, and I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. But I personally find a few things odd about this story. Number one, it was very unusual that Jeffrey's body was found encased in ice, or partially encased in ice. This has happened before with bodies that are found near cold bodies of water, but it's extremely rare. Although it's not totally out there, this is a very cold body of water, and who knows what happened to his body after he passed away. I also personally find it improbable that Jeffrey was running near the pier and then slipped and fell into the water. He was known to be a very sensible and pragmatic runner who didn't really take risks, and so I find it improbable that this one time he decided to go right up to the edge of the water to run. Also, Jeffrey was in exceptional shape. People like him, if they fall into cold water, generally don't become incapacitated by this. It can be quite a shock to the system for someone that's very out of shape to all of a sudden find themselves in a freezing cold lake. And honestly, it can be a challenge for anyone. But it seems like the Durham Police were suggesting that Jeffrey had fallen into the water and then become incapacitated by the cold. And I just think that this is improbable. Jeffrey was in excellent shape, and if he had fallen into the water, he probably could have gotten himself out fairly easily. And then obviously, I think the strangest thing about this case, at least for me, was the fact that Jeffrey's body was found completely naked. There's just no way of really explaining this, because even when bodies are recovered from very rough water like a whitewater river, they are not found completely naked. The force of the water does not remove their clothing. Shoes can come off quite easily, but it's very unusual for a body to be recovered from a body of water completely naked. I also find it odd that his tennis shoes were found around the same time as his body was. You would think that if he ended up in the water and his shoes came off, those shoes would have scattered far and wide over the weeks. But instead, his body and his shoes were found in the same relative area. So I just personally found that unusual, but I'm not going to speculate on how I think that may have happened. But to me, this story has always just stood out as being one of the strangest disappearances in Ontario in recent times. And I just want to say that my heart goes out to Jeffrey's family and friends. I can only imagine what it would be like to go through something like that, and I hope that Jeffrey's family and friends were able to find healing and mostly move on from this very frustrating incident. I hope you found that interesting and informative, and if you'd like to watch more of my content in general, please consider subscribing to my channel. I upload at least one new video per week. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Strange North channel.